Hi, in this video we'll take a look at section 1.8, multiplication of algebraic expressions. So when we multiply algebra expressions, this should be a review. There are three main properties that we're going to use. The first one is distributive. So just a reminder that a times b plus c equals ab plus ac. The commutative property of multiplication means that you can multiply more than two or more variables in any order. So you can take a, multiply b times c first times a. That's the same thing if you would have had a times b first, then times c. Third review is exponent rule. If you have x to the power of m times x to the power of n, that equals x to the power of, add the powers. So there are a couple of examples we're going to look at from the textbook. The first one is example 3. The product of a monomial and a polynomial. A monomial means single term. So when we take a single term and multiply it times an expression, that means to multiply that term times each term inside the expression. So the next step shows we're multiplying 2ax times each of the terms inside the parentheses. Then simplify. So when we simplify the 2ax times 3ax squared, multiply each component. 2 times 3 is 6, a times a is a squared, x times x squared is x to the third, and that's where this part of the solution came from. Then also multiply 2ax times negative 4yz. We end up with negative 8axyz. So this is our solution, and sometimes they'll have you expand. The next example does the same thing. It walks you through another example. Then on example 4, let's take a look at product of polynomials. This time notice we have a binomial, two terms, times another binomial. You might have remembered this or heard this as FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. And what it means, we take x times x, then x times 3. Then we take negative 2 times each item. Negative 2 times x, negative 2 times 3. So when we multiply these, we get x squared plus 3x minus 2x minus 6, add like terms, and this is what we end up with. So another way you can think about this is you can take x times x plus 3, if you need a kind of a middle step in there, plus negative 2 times x plus 3. Okay. So that's a couple of examples. Now we're going to take a look. You try these and then click on the video if you need to see the solutions. So number 1, we're going to take a monomial times a binomial. So we take the first term and distributive property through each of the two terms on the inside. So we get 2c to the third d squared times the first term, which is 5c to the third d to the fourth. Then we take 2c to the third d squared times, notice that's a negative 2c squared d. Multiply, we get 2 times 5 is 10. C to the third times c to the third, add the powers, we get c to the sixth, d squared times d to the fourth, d to the sixth. Next term, positive times a negative will be a negative. 2 times 2 is 4. C to the third times c squared, add the powers, c to the fifth, d squared times d, remember that that's d to the power of 1, so 2 plus 1 would be d to the third. These are not like terms, so we've got those completed. Next example, we're going to multiply a binomial times a binomial, so I'm going to write it out. We're going to take x times x minus 2. Then we're going to add, because that's a positive 6, 6 times x minus 2. So that's distributive property. Now we take distributive property again. X times x is x squared. X times negative 2 is minus 2x. 6 times x is plus 6x. 6 times negative 2 is minus 12. Add like terms. we end up with x squared. These two are like terms. Negative 2 plus 6 is a positive 4x minus 12. Next example is the same type, except now we're multiplying another monomial. So this is where the commutative property comes in. You can take 5b and distribute it through b plus 4 and then multiply that product times 7 minus b, or you can multiply these two together and then times the 5b. It doesn't matter, you'll get the same answer. So I'm going to take the 5b and multiply b plus 4, these two together first. Okay, so I'm going to do this a little bit quicker than I did the last one. I'm going to take b times 7, which is 7b. Then I'm going to take b times negative b, which is minus b squared. Now I'm going to take the 4 times 7, which is 28, 4 times negative b, which is a negative 4b. Add any like terms in here, and I'm also going to put them in descending order. So that means I'm going to put the b squared term first. So I have negative b squared. Then I'm going to add negative 4 plus 7b, I get 3b, plus 28. Okay, so I've got these two multiplied together. Now I'm going to multiply times the term on the outside. So we take 5b times negative b squared. That gives us negative 5b to the third. Take 5b times positive 3b. I get positive 15b squared. 5b times a positive 28, I'm going to do the calculator real quick. 28 times 5 is 140b. So there's our solution. And last but not least, find the product. We have 8y minus 2 squared. This means we take 8y minus 2 times 8y minus 2, and then follow what we did up above. So I'm going to take 8y times 8y minus 2, then I'm going to take negative 2 times 8y minus 2. Multiply through, 8 times 8 is 64y squared, minus 2 times 8 is 16y. Multiply, we get negative 16y. Negative 2 times negative 2 is plus 4. Add like terms. Our two like terms are both of the negative 16's added together is a negative 32y plus 4.